second keynote speaker, and he actually introduced himself right now, Daryl Pritchard. He is Vice President of Science Policy at the Personalized Medicine Coalition in US. I think you would give us a brief update on what that is. I know you had a conference in Boston last week, and I think this is one of the key players that we need to interact with in the future, ICPerMed and you. So looking forward to your talk, please.
Thank you, everybody, and especially thank you to ICPerMed, the leaders and staff that put together this terrific conference. I'm really looking forward to this effort and getting the Personalized Medicine Coalition and more U.S. institutions involved internationally in the global implementation of personalized medicine. This is the topic we really need to be focused on right now, implementation. So, first, the Personalized Medicine Coalition, just for a little bit of background, it's a multi-organization, member organization coalition based in Washington, D.C. And we have about 240 members from across the U.S., and we have a number of international members, not as many as we should. We need to get more, and we need to work together more and work with ICPerMed and other international bodies. We have laboratories, industry, both diagnostic and pharmaceutical industry. We have providers, both the academic health centers and community hospital systems, IT organizations, both the information technology development and information management side. We even have patient groups and a number of other partners. We even have a couple of payers. So it's a very diverse membership at the Personalized Medicine Coalition where we all come together, is that all of our members are interested in the advance of personalized medicine. So today I'm going to talk about clinical implementation challenges and solution strategies. We've had a couple of terrific presentations today, great examples of clinical implementation at the University Hospital in Cologne, efforts in Sweden, efforts in Canada, what really are success stories in implementing personalized medicine. And what I'm going to focus on in my talk is about some of the common challenges that all of these programs and all of the programs that I'll feature in the United States are encountering as they try to move personalized medicine from an idea to real practice. So first, the obligatory slide that has the definition of personalized medicine. The only reason I put this up is really to point out that there are a lot of different terminologies that are being used right now, especially in the United States: precision medicine, personalized medicine, individualized medicine, even stratified targeted therapy. Just wanted to clear up that talking about all of this is the same thing. And really that's focused on the technology, the molecular diagnostic tests to determine which medical treatments will work best for a patient. And you couple this information with your increased or improved empowerment or interaction with a patient, you can get to the best treatments for any individual. The progression of the advance of the advent of personalized medicine from bench to bedside really goes through a lot of these things. And this is something that we were just discussing, why we need to get more involved internationally now. Really from scientific discovery through translational research and product development, regulatory approval on all sides, coverage reimbursement. A lot of the efforts that we've been doing have been in parallel because we are going through different scientific and translational research mechanisms, different regulatory approval mechanisms, coverage reimbursement mechanisms. But now, I think we have reached a pivot point in the advancement of personalized medicine to clinical adoption, which is why ICPerMed is having this conference today on personalized medicine action. And the question now is, how do we implement personalized medicine in clinical care? So a number of stakeholders are involved in the process, starting with researchers, going all the way around this wheel to patients, who are the most important stakeholder of all. The check marks that I've included here really indicate what I think are the stakeholders who are on board, who are aware of the value of personalized medicine and are vested in bringing it along. Of course, researchers in diagnostic industries, but over the course of the last few years, the pharmaceutical industry has also come on board, as evidenced by an increased portfolio and product pipeline in targeted therapies. And regulators as well. Over the last 3 years, 25%, a full 1/4 of newly approved medicines in both the United States and in Europe have been personalized medicines. They've included biomarkers in their targeted strategies. But the stakeholders that I have listed in red, payers and providers, are key now. These are the stakeholders where we really need to bring them on board, make sure that they recognize the value of personalized medicine. And these are key stakeholders because they're the ones that provide access to everything that's been developed on this side of the curve to patients. So the value proposition is simple. If we implement a personalized medicine strategy, we'll see improved clinical outcomes, and thereby we'll have lower costs. But the implementation of personalized medicine takes into account a lot of things: new technologies like diagnostic testing, including genomic sequencing, new information management tools, and targeted therapies. It also includes new practices, patient-centered care, higher involvement of the clinical laboratory, genetic counseling, et cetera. And it involves a change in culture, which has been presumed and talked about throughout the day. Really, how do we move from fee-for-service to value-based care? How do we educate both patients and the healthcare workforce? How do we focus to an earlier diagnosis and prevention in some cases? All of these provide implementation challenges. And these challenges, barriers to implementing care, run a common thread through all hospital systems globally. So the Personalized Medicine Coalition, working with our members, has embarked upon an integration of personalized medicine into healthcare initiative. The idea is to first identify and understand all the barriers to clinical adoption of personalized medicine, then to examine different strategies for overcoming the barriers. Do we have to go under the barriers, around the barriers, over the barriers? What are the ways to overcome them? What are some of the solution strategies? Some of which have been discussed by our examples today. And then ultimately what we'd like to do, in working with all of you and ICPerMed and all the groups, is to develop a roadmap, a set of best practices so that hospital systems can easily or more easily integrate personalized medicine into their clinical work streams. In doing this initiative, we recruited a healthcare working group, and part of that healthcare working group included mostly providers, academic health centers, community healthcare systems, and healthcare delivery support, and also a few physician groups. And this was the key, the involvement of these groups was the key to identifying what those challenges were. And we worked quite a bit and developed a list of over 90 different challenges or barriers to implementing care. When I looked at that list of barriers, I was able to sort of organize it, and I believe that all of the barriers fit into these 5 categories, which I want to go over with you. So this is the categories of barriers to implementing personalized medicine. So there's awareness and education. This has come up a couple of times during the day. How do we assure that healthcare providers, policymakers, and patients have the understanding and knowledge of personalized medicine concepts and technologies that's needed to bring it forward? The second is patient empowerment. And that's come up a couple of times as well, but less so today. But we have had a few patient representatives, and I want to really thank all of them for arriving today and providing their perspective on this journey. This includes the ethical, legal, and societal implications. How do we involve a patient so that they're in charge of their own data and they're involved in decision-making that is done in an acceptable way to the patient community? The third set of challenges is value recognition. And we really had a featured keynote discussion today by Dr. Catherine Payne about this, what evidence is necessary to really convince or to make clear the value of personalized medicine and care, that this is better than the traditional way we've been doing medicine. The fourth set of challenges are on the infrastructure and information management. We kind of talked about this, but not directly, but really one of the key things in order for this to happen is that the data must be integrated. The data, sometimes massive amounts involving individual patient biomarkers and health reported outcomes, has to be integrated into the clinical work stream. It has to get to the doctor in a user-friendly way that actually provides a net time save. It's not going to happen if there's a ton of time needed into inputting data. It needs to be seamless. It needs to come from our electronic health records and what's regularly happening in clinical care, and that data needs to be organized and delivered in such a way that it will help with decision making. And finally, all of this leads to a reshaped delivery process that ensure access to personalized medicine. And this is a sort of a complicated topic, but it's really all about moving away from a fee-for-service culture to value-based care. So first, awareness and education, and I'm just going to go over this quickly. In 2014, the Personalized Medicine Coalition did a survey of the U.S. public. It was a well participated in survey, and that showed that less than 40% of the public had even heard of personalized medicine. And that was a concern in 2014. This was when personalized medicine really was taking off. Now, we updated that this year, and still only about 40% of the public are even aware of it. So we have a huge educational gap with the public and with patients. On top of that, in 2011, a PBM, a pharmacy benefit management company in the United States, Medco, did a clinician survey. And in the survey, they found that 98% of doctors felt that genetics played an important factor in therapeutic outcome. No surprise. However, only 10% of them said they were confident in ordering genetic tests. And even in oncology, where you think ordering genetic tests is regular practice, in 2011, less than 1 out of every 4 doctors were comfortable in ordering genetic tests. Now, we hope that that has changed, especially in oncology, over the last 7 years. But you can see the gap here for the healthcare workforce as well. And that gap, I'm sure, exists in the same way that it does in the United States all across the world. There are elite academic health centers that deliver care versus regular community hospital systems. And here, in this project that was done by Health Catalyst, they showed that when asked how significant a role will precision medicine play in your organization over the next 5 years, roughly 3/4 of academic health centers said it's going to play a very significant role, but only 1/3 of community hospital systems felt that way. And this was done in 2017. What's important here, especially in the US, and I'm thinking it's a similar situation in Europe, is that 78% of US patients receive healthcare from community healthcare systems. So while we talk about pioneer systems bringing in personalized medicine, we're really talking a great deal about the elite systems that not a lot of patients have access to. The second set of challenges was patient empowerment. We're talking about the data privacy issues, how to include patients, how to get them involved in their own care in a way that they had not been, the ethical, legal, societal issues. This has led to the formation of a number of patient empowerment groups. In Europe, there's the EPF. In the United States, we've embarked upon our Precision Medicine Initiative, the All of Us research program, which intends to sequence 1 million patients, but it really, really is focusing on patient inclusion, how to make sure that we return results in a way that's acceptable, that patients are brought in from across the spectrum of the population in the United States. Diversity, disparities are all to be addressed. This is another key challenge as personalized medicine go forward. The value recognition question is near and dear to all of our hearts. I can tell from the conversations that we've had today. If you look at the total health expenditures per person, it's a really bad situation in the United States, but it's not really good anywhere. Costs are high and they continue to grow. Healthcare spending is between 8 and 11% GDP, depending upon country, but that's across the board. I think in the lowest groups that spend the lowest amount, the countries that spend the lowest amount on healthcare, it's still about 8%. And this is continuing to go up in many ways in an unsustainable way. There's a need for improved patient outcomes and effective cost-saving strategies and new technologies that bring this along. This is where personalized medicine comes into play. So the concept is pretty clear. Targeted therapies improve outcomes. So they provide the best treatment to each patient as early in their care as possible. This, in turn, reduces costs because ineffective or harmful treatment options are avoided, and downstream expenses are reduced. This includes in next-gen sequencing, which the idea is it would allow for the identification of multiple genomic molecular pathway alterations in a single test. So this is where we think there's a great value proposition. However, even though arguments have been made for the clinical and economic benefits of NGS, and there's a solid foundation of evidence on proof of concept, healthcare decision makers have been reluctant to change policies and practices without having convincing evidence of the clinical and economic value of personalized medicine. So the question becomes, what is convincing evidence? And I think it's always a good idea to quote Machiavelli in any presentation, but the idea is that most people do not believe in anything new until they have actual experience of it. So we face a skeptical population, and it's in human nature to be skeptical, so we need to develop the evidence that demonstrates the value of personalized medicine. This sets up a particularly difficult conundrum, and that is to have that experience that convinces providers and payers of the value of personalized medicine, you need to see it operate, work in clinical practice. You need practice-based real-world evidence. However, there's limited access to personalized medicine technologies without there being evidence already developed. So because of the limited access, there's a lack of clinical evidence being developed. Because there's a lack of evidence, there's inconsistent reimbursement. Because there's inconsistent reimbursement, there's limited access. So it sets up a conundrum. Which comes first, the evidence or the access? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first in this scenario, evidence or access? So the interpretation of evidence regarding the value of diagnostic testing is where we are today, and this is our key issue. If you consider along this x-axis the evidence that's being accumulated, I'm not sure where we are right now, but the idea is believers in personalized medicine need this much evidence, and as you develop more, you can convince more skeptics. I will posit that diagnostic manufacturers are believers. That's why they've gotten into this business model. But on the other end, the skeptics are the payers, right? And I'll posit even further that the key for why they're skeptical depends on risks and benefits. So for the diagnostic industry, the risks are quite low. They've already developed a product. They've already invested what risk there is, but the benefits are very, very high. But for payers, the risks or the costs can be quite high because it's a new investment in technologies that they're unaware of, and the benefits are not known. The next set of challenges involve infrastructure and information management. This is the health informatics that are necessary to really organize and deliver sometimes massive amounts of data in a new way. This includes the health information technology, the computers, hardware, software that go into the delivery of personalized medicine, but also the health information management, coding, standardization, which we just talked about, administration guidelines and development of clinical decision-making tools. Finally, the final set of challenges, the fifth, so to speak, is really the Reshape delivery processes. And this includes simple concepts, I'm kidding when I say simple, but value-based care, new practice incentives that overcome the reluctance of some physicians to change the way they do things. Physicians are used to practicing medicine a certain way. We want them to, the system will benefit if they implement new systems. There need to be appropriate incentives. We need updated clinical guidelines. We need new clinical decision support tools that makes all of this information processing easier for the doctors. We need improved access to supplies and services. This includes reimbursement. And we need personalized medicine business models. If you switch from fee-for-service to value-based care, you're really changing the business model for hospitals and healthcare delivery. So we need to work it out a way that prevention actually doesn't damage the bottom line for the healthcare delivery community. As I looked at these 5 sets of challenges, I realized that it really, this as well, it's not a hard progression, but there is a sort of a linear progression on the readiness of bringing these, of addressing these barriers. So I'm going to say that if we address the education and awareness and patient empowerment barriers early, that will allow us to do more in value recognition. We'll have patients on board, everybody will understand what's happening. And that value recognition will allow us to invest in new infrastructure and information management and ultimately change the way we change the culture in care. We're not going to change the culture of healthcare delivery to a personalized medicine system overnight. So we really need to work through all of these sets of challenges. So I'm going to pivot here and talk about solutions to these strategies and point out a few examples. Now I'm going to try to go through them quickly for the sake of time, and we've had some more detailed examples, especially with the situations in Sweden, Canada, and at the University Hospital in Cologne. But part of the integration initiative that the Personalized Medicine Coalition is doing involves us going around the country in the United States and interviewing some of the pioneer healthcare systems that have implemented personalized medicine program, and some of them are listed here. What I would like to do, and I'll posit this to the ICPerMed leadership today, is to really make this a global effort now. Since we're really at the phase where clinical implementation barriers are shared globally, I'd like to make sure that we include all of the world, but to have ICPerMed as part of this clinical implementation strategies development, building this roadmap. We've seen, and we will see over the course of tomorrow as well, some of the hospital systems that are working with ICPerMed. Really, we have the opportunity to make this a global roadmap, a global initiative. Really quickly, a couple of examples of strategies. There's a hospital system in Northern Virginia outside of Washington, D.C. This is the hospital system that my children were born in, that are implementing a personalized medicine program through pharmacogenomics. They now have they offer optional pharmacogenomics testing to all newborns as part of their standard package of care. The idea is really to integrate pharmacogenomic testing into their workforce, into their patient community, and make it understand. They analyze 7 different pharmacogenomic markers and return those results to patients and describe it to their parents, trying to bring their parents in on this. Now, one of the challenges to this is, while most families opt into this program, really the results aren't that useful for kids. Not a lot of kids are using pharmacogenomic interventions, so this is something that they'll have to take with them throughout their lives, and there's a question of how well this is going to be impacting personalized medicine in their care. Another system in the United States, Geisinger, is an integrated payer provider in central Pennsylvania. And they've developed a system-wide biobank and genomic analysis program. They've partnered with a pharmaceutical company, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and they sequence every patient, they offer sequencing to every patient that enters their system. This is remarkable because they now have more genomes than I believe any of the genomic sequencing programs around the world, even the systems. They have over 200,000 genomes now. And they have what they call a Geisinger 76 genes where they return results to all of those patients that do. Their opt-in rate is about 89%, so almost 90% of patients agree to get sequenced, about 10% do for whatever reason, don't for whatever reason. But here they are able to return results and they only return results to those that they consider actionable mutations, but that Geisinger 76 are actionable. So this is a real strong implementation project where we've seen a lot of success and it's worked. Partners Healthcare System in Boston has their Gene Insight program. It's a genetic reporting service used across multiple hospital systems. And this is an example of breaking down some of the data interoperability issues that we've seen crop up between different systems as each system develops their own data integration processes. It streamlines the clinical testing processes, manages vast amount of data generated in genetic testing, and it facilitates further research by collecting information from across different systems. At the North Shore Hospital, University Hospital System in Chicago, Illinois, they have an EMR and data warehouse called Health Heritage, and it's linked directly to an app which involves the patient directly. And this is an example of really breaking down that patient empowerment challenge. So the clinical data that flows from, they have a secure electronic medical record system, can be downloaded directly to an app of the patients that involves them, lets them see the research in progress, lets them see where they are, what variants they have and how they relate to some research that's going on. And it allows the development of predictive modeling programs, which they're also engaged in. So another great example of clinical implementation. I want to point out a network. So this is the question that I just asked the Canadian team about, is how can we assure that this data is standardized or is interoperable? And one set of hospital systems, including 3 big hospital systems, call themselves the Oncology Precision Network. Now, they're only doing this in oncology so far, but it includes the Providence St. Joseph Health System, which is in the state of Washington, Stanford Medicine, which is in San Francisco, California, and the Intermountain Healthcare System, which is spans 22 hospitals across Utah and Idaho. It's based in Salt Lake City, Utah. And covers they have a healthcare plan, an integrated payer plan that covers 900,000 people. They've linked together all of their data. They use the same electronic health record. So this is an example. It's very hard to convince a hospital system to use a different electronic health record if they've already invested a lot of time in developing theirs, especially in a personalized medicine program where now you're implementing and integrating a lot of genomic, biomarker, and patient data directly into your electronic health record. Try to tell them to use a different one because it's being developed is very difficult. So we need to assure that we're working together to develop our systems in a way that the data is interoperable. These folks are doing it. All 3 systems have interactive molecular tumor boards, and they have registries that they can get the patients on so they can share data amongst all of the systems in their network, and they have multi-institutional shared data. So it allows them to draw upon the research and upon the clinical data that is being developed throughout each system. It's a huge operating network that really demonstrates the ability to have interoperability between systems. So one of the things I mentioned when I first came in to the ICPerMed folks was they said it's very interesting, there's going to be some great examples of success stories in personalized medicine, but there is an equal need to talk about where personalized medicine's been implemented and there hasn't been a slam dunk or a home run or a goal. We're in need of examples to show where personalized medicine may be falling short and then talk about why. And this example does it. It's a study that the Personalized Medicine Coalition commissioned with the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center using a set of data of non-small cell lung cancer patients from the Flatiron database. And Flatiron is recently been purchased by Roche, has a huge set of data from electronic health records and clinical records of over 190 different hospitals in the United States. So this is real world data, and that's the key thing. It's practice-based data. So much of the success stories we looked at have been done in clinical trials, where you can really make sure that the technology is being used appropriately. Here, we looked at the data and set up a model, an economic model. And I'll try to be real quick. The overall survival is very clear for the use of targeted therapies. However, what we saw is a cost effectiveness, for those of you that are familiar with the incremental cost effectiveness ratio, of only about 148,000. So we got barely cost effective despite a clear overall survival advantage, clinical benefit of the testing, of targeted therapies, not the testing, I'm sorry, of the targeted therapies. So why isn't this providing a higher economic benefit? And the answer lies in this picture. Even though 30% of patients who were treated, who got next-gen sequencing testing, had actionable mutations, only about 21% of them got targeted therapies. In the single-gene testing arm, there was a similar lack of testing, but far less. Most of them got targeted therapies. So the solution, the question becomes, what is it that is happening that there are so many actionable mutations that are not being acted upon in the community hospital systems that are part of this database? And that is our question. It hasn't worked out. If we look at clinical trial data, we'll see a very different story. But here we need to see, and these we largely suspect are due to education awareness gaps. Some of these doctors never got next-gen sequencing and never intended to use the information to change. They were going to give standard chemotherapy anyway. And lots of times, patients have moved into care strategies that were not personalized, and then the doctors were reluctant to change it. In other cases, patients received single-gene testing and then next-gen sequencing. So what was the value of that? So we need to really understand that there's a practice gap, because you're not going to recognize a real value of a new technology unless it's used appropriately. So I'll skip this. This is clinical trial data, which you've seen similar things already, just showing the improved clinical effectiveness in non-small cell lung cancer of a personalized medicine strategy. And I wanted to finish, because I'm out of time, just to bring us back to the patient, and a patient that I know, Deb Smith, who now has survived for 5 years after her lung cancer diagnosis. And she said, I'm here and I'm doing very well. 2 years ago, said 3 years after my stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis, and most of the time my life feels pretty good. She expected to only have 4 to 6 months to live when she got diagnosed. But instead, she says, I've been taking trips with my son that I never thought I would be able to take. What I've been trying to do is give him some good memories. And in the process, I found that my life is more complete than it ever was before. And I want to just end with this to highlight that we do this for the patients, and that this really does work. We need to implement this so that more patients can have the story like Deb Smith. Thank you.